Okay, so we're here today talking with Sam McAfee about a post that he put on the Luxor blog. And the post is about lean management principles for entrepreneurs. So we're just going to talk about the 3 core principles that are in this post and how those relate to entrepreneurs, how they can be useful. So let's start off with respect for people.
Sure.
Tell me about that.
Sure. So respect for people has to do with how companies are organized and how decision making specifically is organized and distributed in a company. And for startups in particular, this is important because startups operate in an environment of extreme uncertainty. There are always too many things to do and too many decisions to be made. And so it can be tempting to try to set up a decision-making structure that's very highly centralized, where the CEO or the founders have to make all of the decisions. And this can be problematic because decision-making has a cost. So when you're doing lean startup in particular, and you're in the field and you're doing experiments and you're building product and getting data back from your experiments, and you're trying to iterate quickly, there are going to be lots of decisions that are bubbling up all the time. And so since the best teams are able to learn quickly and be agile and pivot quickly if necessary, it's best to create a decision-making structure that respects the ability of the team in the trenches, as it were, to make the right decisions on the fly as information is coming in.
Right, so respect for people really is about management having enough respect for their team to allow their team to make the necessary decisions at the time that those decisions need to be made.
Right, exactly. And not all decisions need to be made at the bottom of the tree, of the hierarchy, if you will. But what's important is actually for leadership to figure out which decisions are best centralized, maybe longer term sort of vision-based decisions and setting the agenda, but then putting together a team that they trust to make the myriad of little decisions that have to be made all day long that really result in the outcomes, for that vision.
Great. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about systems thinking now.
Sure. So systems thinking is important for startups as well, because the idea is that when you're building a company, particularly a products company, there are a lot of moving parts that all come together to create the whole. And so what we want to do is we want to consider all of the decisions that we make in tuning both the organization and tuning the product in terms of its outcome for the overall organization. It can be tempting to try and tune or optimize individual workflows or sub-processes or individuals on the team and what they're doing without considering how all of the parts play together. And this can be illustrated in a software metaphor when you're trying to speed up the response time of a system. Typically there are many layers in that process, and simply picking the one that is most visible or most obvious to speed up might not actually be the biggest contributor to the response time. So there's one way of thinking about it where it might not be the most effective to optimize a sub-process or a part rather than the whole. But also in Lean specifically, it's also the case that when you're talking about workflows or value streams, sometimes optimizing the work process upstream can create more bottlenecks and more inventory downstream. So it's not just the case that optimizing without looking at the whole is not effective. It can also even be damaging for the overall throughput of the organization.
Right, so systems thinking then is about really addressing the entire system before making decisions about optimization of any specific part, and really assessing whether or not changing something in one place is going to have an effect over the system as a whole.
That's absolutely right.
Okay, great. So how do these relate to continuous improvement?
Right, so for me, I actually see continuous improvement kind of emerging out of the connection between the two first principles of respect for people and systems thinking. And specifically what I mean by that is, as you're building your organization, as you're building your company, the goal in Lean is to build a company that is able to improve, that's able to learn and adapt, to build its product, to get feedback from the marketplace and improve. So by putting together the concepts of respect for people and thinking about things systemically, and working that into some processes like retrospectives or other practices that you can take where you're looking at your own improvement and then making slight changes as you go, that all comes together into a holistic picture of continuous improvement.
Great. All right. Thanks a lot for your time.
My pleasure.